Deirdre, agus fáilte, hello and welcome. I'm working on a little TV table that I'm making from an old TV table, and I'm at the stage where I'm after processing some of the old timber, and I've got to the stage where I'm going to end up with this sort of guy here with two side frames, and I've got a top that's tapered, and I've got a TV little box underneath there that shows on the previous video. So to date, I've taken the table apart, I've machined up some stuff, and this was the old shelf that was on the old table. That's laying down. I cut some of the stuff apart, and there are my two side frames which are going to taper in like this. Now, so I've got that joint there that's just grooved into position there, and I've got a groove on this here as well, it'll show. Why do I do that? It's a fast way of doing it, just running through the machines. What am I going to do with the gap? I'm going to fill it with walnut to give me contrast and colour. So that's just a little design detail to enhance it, and I give you a little picture frame effect. Okay, and now these two pieces will be going at angles like that, and then there's going to be a couple of rails going across there, and they're going to support the little shelf there that's going to take the little TV box. So that's those two guys. These are other bits and bobs I had left over there. You can see the edge of the old table that I had there. And this is the top itself. So this was the length of the top. So I've taken that apart and I've cut it down again, and I've jointed it, and I've ended up with a width of 400 millimeters here, and it's going to be 700 millimeters in length. So I just have the length there at 710. So I'm going to cut that off there at 700 exactly. Now this particular top, this top from the center, if I just pick any point there that looks like the center, I'm going to have to taper it. So I'm going to draw a line here just to show it on camera. From about 20 millimeters down to zilch. The edge of the table is going to be tapered there. It's going to be narrower on the outside and narrower on the outside, tapered into the center here. That's just to lighten the whole look up. How do I do that? Well, it's a lot of work. I've had to do it by hand to go across the full width. So what I'm going to do is I'll make up a jig for my thicknesser, which will allow me to raise the tabletop itself as it goes through the planer. So the planer blade, it'll be raised from the back here, and the planer will actually rotate here, and as it goes through, it'll taper it for me. So I have to set up a little jig for that, and we'll show that in the next little clip. So that's it to date. This is the ultimate aim, to end up with that particular shape. Now this is just a skeleton, it's just a stick insect, a stick man sort of little jobby, just to get the point across to the viewer. We'll be adding little subtle details to give the whole thing a light little lift, and then we get down to the base, or get down to the rest of it there to machine it up for structurally holding it together. So I go through the structural integrity that was dealt with in the last video about the loads that are imposed and what it has to hold. One thing that's very important here that I might as well point out when I'm going to do anything in the design process, or it doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether it's joinery, furniture, if there's roofing, it doesn't matter a damn. Probably not in roofing too much. However, I will always, in furniture and joinery, I will always have a marking system, face side and face edge. I'll say it on camera, ignore that advice at your peril. It's vitally important that you know your ass from your elbow when you're going to machine stuff. If it's not marked, do you turn it this way or do you turn it that way? If joints aren't centered, which they're most often not centered, well then you need to know which is face side up or which is face side down, and which is face edge in or which is face edge out. Ignore that rule at your peril. It's a basic fundamental principle that's applied in joinery and furniture, and I go nowhere without it. Now these lines are marked heavy just so the camera can possibly pick them up. I would normally have them as light as possible. Why? That's very obvious, because I have to sand them off before I polish the project. So I don't want too much graphite on the surface there. So that's it. I cut my top to length now. I have to cut it to length. So when it goes through that planer, this guy here behind me, when it goes through there, that I'm able to taper it, flip it around and taper the other side. And I go from 20 mil at the edge here to 40 mil in the center. So I get that nice tapered view out like so. So it's going to taper like that out to the edges. One thing that's important in design is the proportion. I keep mentioning proportion. I'll talk more about proportion in further videos, but this is going to be 700 by 400. 700 by 400 isn't 100 miles off two squares. 350 by 400, it's not 100 miles off square. The closer you can get to two squares in design, the closer you are to good proportion. There's other ones as well, but that's just a rule of thumb. In my case here, it'll be 7 by 4, which is nearly two squares. But so visually to the eye, it'll look quite pleasant. It's not going to be large, it's quite small actually. It's only supporting a 50-inch TV screen. I don't want it to be overly cumbersome. I want it just to function, look appealing, and let it do its job, which is just to hold the TV in a nice position. So that's it. This is the white ash that I have here. Sometimes when you get it towards brown there, in this case, they call it olive ash. It depends on where the tree is grown, the soil type. We'll talk about all that later on, the woods and the personalities and so on. Just a piece of useless information for some people, or it might be so interesting to some. The ash tree is associated with healing and the magic of life, and it's hugely influential in Norse mythology. So, just a little point that I point out there: ash, lovely material to work with, very easy to machine up as well. It's very agreeable, and it polishes up well also. So, Anish Godin Céadú Rilla, until we meet the next hour, slán the foal, tug the buggy. Take it easy, and mahu as vacant. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch up in the next clip. Bye for now.